Hello everybody and welcome back to Back Out of the Case. This is Skyflight44, aka Zek44. And today I'm going to be playing some more Donkey Kong Land. We're going to be finishing this game off today. And after this we still have 13 parts of Donkey Kong Lands 2 and 3. Can't wait for that, especially considering the fact that I put a lot of work, especially into Donkey Kong Land 3. I definitely put a crap load of work into that. But, one thing I did want to elaborate on immediately so I can talk about what I want to talk about in this video. The second reason why I believe developers hate the cloud stages is that there's these two apology bonus stages in this first level. As you can see, this one is based off of the original cloud level, the first cloud level. And it has a lot of bonus coins for you to grab. Each one a potential life. There's another, to a lesser extent, it has less bonus coins, but there's another bonus stage based off of the second cloud level, and it gives you quite a lot of bonus coins too. Combine the both, and it's 14 plus. I don't know if it's 14 or if it's more, because I haven't counted in a while. It's been months since I counted. But there's a shitload of bonus coins, and well, I think with that many, it can constitute as an apology for, all the lives you had to have lost attempting the first two cloud levels. And again, if they fix the screen, how the screen moves, and they actually went and fixed the small-ass platform, those levels could have been good. Those levels could have been pretty good. But that wasn't the case. Now, this is the fourth world. The fourth world is completely original, barring the final boss. The final boss is similar to the final boss in Donkey Kong Country, but it isn't the same boss. And, well, I do enjoy the final boss as well. Rare has always been generally good with making good final bosses. By, one, making the final boss take quite a lot of hits, and getting more and more intense as the actual boss fight went along. Now, in this world, these three stages that they have, three level themes, is what I call the apartment theme, the next one, which will be the blimp theme, and the third level theme is the construction site theme. And all of them are good. And the blimp levels I find to be a little bit harder. Like this one, you're actually supposed to be collecting the Kong letters so you can make platforms for it. You have to do this 3 times, and after this you'll be able to go and the fourth Kong letters, all of the fourth Kong letters are going to be used for the save. So do get that, because holy shit. When I actually did get to beat this the first time when I was playing it on an emulator, this was by far the hardest stage in the entire game for me. Some of the things that it makes you try and do to get the Kong letters is difficult. Not to mention, there's a bonus stage which you can not necessarily miss as much as fuck up, and you can only attempt to get it once. But oh well. I really do like the music in this entire world. Everything about this world, the graphics, the level aesthetics, absolutely amazing. Well, maybe not absolutely amazing. The music's amazing. The difficulty's just right. Fair, but still being really difficult. And, well, not as difficult as DK Land 2, or even some parts of 3. But if you compare it to the difficulty and the rising difficulty of Donkey Kong Land, it's definitely the hardest portion of the entire game, and I think it's a really good way of finishing off this game. If there's anything you had to say about Donkey Kong Land, if there's any problems you had with Donkey Kong Land, at least you could say that the end of the game, it goes out with the bang. It really tries its hardest to be good within the final world. And this is one of the reasons why I hate that second Cloud stage so much. The fact that I couldn't get to this world as a child, it bothers the hell out of me. Oh well. One of the things I did want to talk about, because part of it is kind of a little bit of hypocrisy to me, but at the same time, I really have to think about why do I feel this way? One of the games I played, I actually got to buy as a child, was the Crash Bandicoot games on the Game Boy Advance. Crash Bandicoot games on the Game Boy Advance very much resemble, when it comes to music, when it comes to level themes, the Crash Bandicoot games on the PS1. Also, Wrath of Cortex for, the second Crash Bandicoot game on the Game Boy Advance. But what gets to me is, for the unoriginality in those games, I can also say that, these games, well, less so Donkey Kong Land 1, but Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3 also fit that, in which they are good games, but they're completely unoriginal. The music is, it's a remixes. The level themes are all the same. Even the level graphics are, more 8-bit Game Boy versions of the level graphics in the Donkey Kong Country series. And why is it that I feel that the lack of originality in the Crash Bandicoot games on the Game Boy Advance why do I feel that that's a bad thing when I can be completely fine with Donkey Kong Land 1, 2, and 3 more specifically? And it might have something to do with the fact that these were made relatively, close to, each and every single Donkey Kong Country game. They were trying to make, like a handheld version of the Donkey Kong Country series. Maybe it's because this was still made by Rare. The developers for the Game Boy Advance Crash Bandicoot games were not the same as the, Naughty Dog, who made the Crash Bandicoot games on the PS1. Well, the platformers at least. And also Crash Team Racing didn't make Crash Bash, even though I still do love Crash Bash. Eurocom Software, was it? I believe they did Crash Bash, and they did a pretty good job. But I think it's probably because different developers did it at a much later date, is what bothers me so much, and why I don't really care too much with Donkey Kong Land. Not to mention, Donkey Kong Land is impressive for the Game Boy. It was ambitious, very, very ambitious on the Game Boy, and I don't feel that as much with Crash Bandicoot games on Game Boy Advance. So I do think that the originality, the unoriginality in these games are more excusable than the unoriginality in the Crash Bandicoot games on the Game Boy Advance. Granted, I still, I do like those games, but what the hell, all the music's pretty much the same. A lot of the level design, well, not necessarily level design, but the level themes are very much the same, and it's just like, I feel like I'm playing Crash 2 or Crash 3 on the Game Boy Advance. You're a completely different company. Couldn't you have, put more effort into it? That was kind of what I feel like. Oh well. I'm going to have to continue talking about Donkey Kong Land, because I haven't talked too much about the world itself. A lot of the gimmicks in this world, a lot of the earlier worlds, well, not all of them, but a lot of the earlier worlds, the levels could pass specifically as, you know, regular levels. There really wasn't too many gimmicks. It's more of, because a lot of levels did technically have level gimmicks. They had the vines, like the jungle levels had the vines. Some of them had a lot of barrel blasting and shit like that. However, I think that in some of those, there was just pure platforming levels. But in this world, pretty much every single level has a gimmick. And I feel as if it works. The gimmicks work in these levels. But the level gimmicks, what separates them, there's far more gimmicks in this world than there were in previous actual worlds. And even when it came to like something like World 3, when it came to cloud levels, you know, the entire platform gimmick was used in two different ways, but it was still pretty much the same gimmick. Interesting. I could probably drag this out for a long time, but I'm gonna cut it short because, well, the video's not going to be lasting forever. The entire Donkey Kong Land game, when it came to quality, kind of varies throughout. You probably remember me talking about how the first world, my third favorite, second world's my second, third world's my least favorite, and this one's my favorite. And I think that's probably one of the weakest points, another complaint I would have with this game, and that most of the fun I have with the game is in the second world and the fourth world. However, I have to work to get to the fun parts. I have to work to get to the good parts, and that bothers the hell out of me. I really kind of dislike that about this game, because when it comes to DK Land 2 or 3, I just love going and playing those games. I actually enjoy playing the entire game. I have fun with most every stage, and that's not necessarily the same thing with this. And actually, that will segue into probably what's going to be my final topic of this game, and that Donkey Kong Land, can it really be considered as good as a Donkey Kong Country game? Donkey Kong Country, you know, has absolutely amazing games. Even Donkey Kong Country 3, which some people dislike a little bit. I have one major problem with it, but even that problem's more of a nitpick. The only thing that made that game seem bad was Donkey Kong Country 2 being better, and it having to follow the masterpiece that is Donkey Kong Country 2. However, that's still a good Donkey Kong Country game. That I can consider to be just as good as the other Donkey Kong Country games. Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3 also can be considered just as good as the Donkey Kong Country game. Donkey Kong Country Returns as well, I believe. That one makes it more barely, but it definitely can be considered one. I still don't think this one can be. Even after watching these videos multiple times, it's just making it more apparent. I don't think this game in particular, even though it's still a good game, even though it's still one of the best platformers on the Game Boy, when you compare it to Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3, which just are better designed, which feel more like Donkey Kong Country games, because more so than the other games, this one also takes more regular platforming gimmicks. I like the balloon gimmick from the first apartment level, but that feels more like something that came out of a, another actual regular platformer, not necessarily a Donkey Kong Country game. There's a lot of, I'm not going to say bad, but more generic things that they added to the game itself that differentiates it from regular Donkey Kong Country. There's a lot of, not necessarily all of the gimmicks, but a lot of gimmicks that they put into Donkey Kong Country aren't necessarily platform staples, which is another reason why I like the series so much. However, well, I really should stop. This game's good enough. For a good attempt. The big reason why I can't get myself to hate this game is because it's ambitious. It's a heavily ambitious title. Trying to take an SNES game, which in itself was graphically impressive for an SNES game, and trying to bring it onto the Game Boy, and trying to keep the music good, trying to keep the graphics good, trying to keep the gameplay just as good. This was a good attempt, and Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3 did better. Now, you can get these on the 3DS Virtual Console. I highly recommend that if you want to get a platformer. It's, like $4 or whatever equivalent in your country. It's pretty cheap. Get Donkey Kong Land 2 or 3. If you want a hard one, if you want the true experience, go for Donkey Kong Land 2. If you want less hard experience, go play Donkey Kong Land 3. If you've beaten that one, you still crave more, go for the other. If you're not satisfied with just Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3, go play the first one. I do like the first one, I just don't think it's as good as the other two. Well, see ya, everybody. Next part, Donkey Kong Land 2.